Warriors. Tonight, we are bringing this MRBC-EU Division A match between EON Synergy and Black Spikes. Both teams coming off of a loss. EON Synergy losing to House of Lords 4-1 after a draw. It was really a 3-1, but the way the league works is that if you draw a match 0-0, whoever wins the series wins that match as well. So it ended up being, instead of 3-1-1, 4-1. So they're going to be looking to get back into the victory column here, trying to push for first place. But they will be contesting Black Spikes Mercenary Corporation. They are the epic MRBC team, the epic EU team. Long time been pretty much the best EU team that we've had. They've won, I think, 4 out of the last 5 seasons of MRBC, but they struggled that first week. They struggled against the 9th STS. Now, I don't expect that struggle to continue. We know they've had some roster issues this season, which is why they did not end up having their second week match against House of Lords. So, and then their third week was a bye due to BMMU, who withdrew. So this is their opportunity. It's their opportunity to show what they're made of, to show that they still belong. Because honestly, if you don't win this season, if you don't play really well, you're gonna, they could get relegated if they don't get some victories here. It's a very tough, very, very tough division this season. I mean, these are all top level teams. Everybody's losing to everybody. Everybody has a loss in this division. So if you start getting 2 or 3 losses, you're gonna be the team that's relegated. But Black Spikes, let's give them the credit they deserve. They've lost before early parts of the season, and they've gone on to just absolutely crush everything in their path. Sure, they're lacking some of those players that they relied on in the past. They're lacking, they don't have Cap playing with them this time. They don't have Kilburn and maybe some of the other Lords EMP players that would help out. But that roster is still very stacked, very high quality team, and I expect nothing but excellent play from them tonight. Now, for the first drop will be a late drop to Canyon Network. This is actually to Black Spikes' advantage. They played the same set of maps, same style, same order in their week 1 match. EON Synergy did not have a week 1 match. So Black Spike's been here before. They're really just kind of getting a replay of what they did before with the new opponent and maybe opposite sides. So it's their time. I think that gives them an advantage. I think that allows them to already have scrimmed it a lot of times. Sure, every team was in the EU team scrimmed quite a bit. We have been scrimming this week 1, but for Black Spikes, they have had time off, time to figure out what went wrong, and they haven't had to play any other drops since. So I think that gives them maybe a little bit of an edge. We'll see. One thing I want to do, just show you guys real quick on the light drop what we saw last time from EON. Actually, it wasn't last time, because last time was a draw, so we don't really care about watching draws. So let's watch this over here. Hopefully this will work really easily. So this was EON against Anteri Scorpions. This is their week 2 match on Frozen City. And what you're going to see is one thing that did well is they like to play a little bit of range. They took this Sparky, the large pulse, medium lasers, and just had it kind of sit back here. Now, one of the things that does in a light drop is that if you can just do any kind of damage, so he does a little bit of damage there, he gets a little bit more damage here. Now that forces the other team to decide. It can really throw them off because, one, they don't feel like they can just keep peeking, poking, or anything like that. They feel like now they have to be the team that ends up pushing. But the other problem is they don't really know what you have. They've only seen these large pulse medium lasers so far. And at that point, they might think you're playing a lot of range. And I think that's kind of, I mean, I was on this drop. I was in the blackjack. You won't see my death, but I died most ungloriously in that fight. But I think that's kind of what was going through their heads at the time, was like, okay, they have a bit of range. So the Sparky will end up being the first target chosen. But it probably shouldn't have been, because one of the things about these kinds of mechs is it's going to get pretty hot once the fight gets intense. It doesn't have that sustained DPS. But because this is the first mech that they're seeing, it's the first mech right when this team is pushing over this corner. It's what mech they see. It becomes the called target, and they're going to stay on it. But watch this move. This is beautiful. You just watch right here. They don't just hang out in this corner. They actually have these lights and a couple of mediums push over towards the head of the dropship area, towards the ridge line, and come around the right side. That means now this Sparky ends up being kind of a decoy. And as a part of that, you see then Series ends up being on there a little bit too long. The other team surrounds him. SRMs does a very good job. EON did a very good job just on this drop. So I would say I think EON is a very good light team. As we talked about, they had the draw against Lords, partly due to that it was on Crimson Strait. Not the best map for light drops, because one team can just take Island, the other team doesn't know if they want to push. So we'll see if they're going to take that Sparky again, play a little bit of range. It's on Canyon. There's some opportunities. There are some good areas for that. Some teams have used the blackjack as a similar role. But we'll be seeing just in a few minutes here as both teams are in the lobby. Now, hopefully I get a couple moments here before they get going. One thing. Talk about the keys to this match are. I think in our synergy it's controlling caps. We saw against Lords that they end up having a few problems dealing with the cap situations. And one of the other problems is they need to stay calm, because if you watch that Tourmaline fight that they had against Lords, they ended up pushing with ER large up to the stage area when they absolutely didn't need to. They had control of the fight, and they ended up pushing it, and they ended up just basically getting in a fight that was not to their advantage and got beat up pretty good. So if they can control the cap situations, and they can stay calm whenever they are not controlling the cap situations, just try to regain control and not try to push things, not get too frantic, I think that if they can do those two things, they'll win this match, because these teams are really close. As for Black Spikes, I think they need to force EON to respond to them. One of the things I saw with Black Spikes is that when they fought against 9th STS, they played a really nice control game, but then they had cap situation problems. They didn't necessarily respond to those cap situation problems. So I would like to see here is for them to actually force the other team to respond to their own capping. Another thing they need to do is they need to keep Proton alive. Proton is, he's their star, but what they need to do is they need to give Proton plenty of time to play that star role. Play the mechs that Proton's going to be able to control matches, win matches, and do as much damage as possible. If Proton ends up having to play a mech that's more scouting, not engaging as much, he might play a light first drop, no problem there, but after that, I think he needs to be in the type of mech that's going to allow him to basically try to win the match for them. That's not taken away from the rest of Black Spikes. Lots of skilled players on this team, and I'm seeing their roster right now. These are their guys. These are the guys they want in these matches. They should be really strong. But I'm going to be watching each one to see how much damage, how long Proton stays alive. If he dies early, then I think that they're going to have some problems. But if they can keep him alive, if he can end up using his team a little bit, kind of like how he plays in the open games, and works with his team, works in that way that he does to do all that damage, then I think Black Spikes will win this. But hey, we're going to find out what's going to go on right now as we are dropping into Canyon Network. MRBC-EU. Division A, week 4. This is going to be drop number 1. 4 lights, 4 mediums. Remember, you can only have 1 duplicate chassis, no streaks, so we won't see any lights blowing up in instant shots. Alright, so I'm looking at these mechs here at the start. Shadowhawk 2D2, Trebuchet, Griffin. So we are definitely looking at SRMs from Black Spikes. They're going to be looking for a close fight. Does not appear that they have any range mechs. They do go with 1 Oxide. And their duplicate is just the Griffin. They went with the Griffins. They don't have the 2 Ns. So they don't have that ECM. On the other side, we do see a Trebuchet. I was reading that a little bit. Well, both teams are actually running some similar mechs here. We do see a Spider 5K going from Black Spikes. So they do have a little bit of pokey range scouting, but Black Spikes is moving up towards the base of the ramp, and they're doing a little bit of damage across the way. And they have these mechs spread out pretty well. That's a pretty interesting position right now from Black Spikes. We'll elevate over this view so you can see, but you see the teams are actually kind of on both sides. A lot of times light drops, people just ball up and push, but we are seeing a little bbit more of a controlled game being played by both, a little bit of patience. Not too much action, not too much damage at this point. The amount that is in favor of Black Spikes so far. So if you're losing trades and you are EON, you might want to start thinking about where you're going to push and how you're going to do it, how you're going to get close. Remember, EON has a mix of VRG players and some BMMB players, all very successful teams and individuals. Alright, so now we see Black Spikes has pushed up. They're going over towards Theta. And we just get a little rotation, but it's a pretty wide rotation going on from EON. So how long are they going to keep doing this before they just end up shoving in there? We see tons of UAVs up above Theta. All the UAVs are Black Spikes right now. Maybe they could actually wait till those go down. Okay, now we get the rush. Now we get the brawl. They push in. The Griffin, Seiko, was way ahead of a lot of the rest of his team. They're trying to get on these Griffins, trying to do some damage on them. They got Oxide down. Take the Oxide down if they possibly can. That'll be huge to get that, because that is going to be one of the biggest damages. But you are seeing they do get the first kill on Skate Knock. To end. Let's get in here on Seiko, because he is heavily damaged and he is completely stripped out. So it's 2-1 now. Advantage for EON. We're just going to watch some of this here. Spider his machine guns will rip through open armor pretty well, but they're going to have to do a little more. Now, Proton is playing this range Blackjack, and he's actually, or Trebuchet, he's actually going to be mostly out of the fight unless he gets pushed on as he is by this Wolfhound. They're going after him pretty heavy with those lights. Pretty good idea if they see that you don't want to leave him stay alive, so they have taken him down, and is now big time 5-1 in favor of EON, and this was going hugely in their way. And the Spider, if the Dungeon Keeper can get that one shot CT, just hold that shot, he does, and it takes it down, and now it is just 2 mechs left alive for Black Spikes.
Heat level critical. Override shut down. New target acquired.
It's just a little bit cleanup, a little bit extra time. Any kill can help. It is a points-based league, but they are not able to get any more kills. And Genesee does suicide at the end, trying to just do what he can, overriding. But he falls by the train tracks. Let's look at the damage. It's what we were talking about a little bit ahead of time. Proton, he had that range style Trebuchet, got some of that early poking damage in. But I was actually thinking maybe he was going to do with SRMs, but then obviously flashing over to his mech, it was range, and that might have ended up costing them a little bit because they didn't have as many mechs that could just be forward with the SRMs. They did have the Oxide and Jenner 2C, but they also had that Spider and a Fire Starter, so they only really had maybe 4 SRM mechs mixed in there, whereas the other team has 2 Griffins, the Shadowhawk with the SRMs, the Jenner, so they had one more mech with SRMs. Pretty good damage spread by EON. Only the Shadowhawk, which was the first to go down for their side, wasn't able to put out a lot of damage. Now Seiko was in the lead, ended up with 133 and stayed alive despite strips. So there was a few mechs there that they could have gotten down if they probably chose to, finished off Seiko, but they decided to leave that strip mech alive. That's one of the things with MRBC with the kills is that you end up sometimes not actually finishing off mechs, not getting the kills, even though you could have got the kills, but you end up not. What the heck? Sorry. Some problem going on here. Hopefully it resolves itself very quickly. sometimes just you won't get kills because you're too too occupied with trying to win. So you'll leave mechs left alive. All right, I reload the scene and see if it'll work. Well, waiting on the next drop, and hopefully that'll resolve itself in a couple moments. Just taking a break here while I try to figure out whatever technical issues that have never happened before. And that's just the way this stuff works. So the teams ended up playing a little bit around the border style. I don't think, at that point, it's like we saw teams being spread out just kind of all around on both sides at one point, and it wasn't really needed. Obviously for EON, they weren't really playing any kind of a range, so their movement was probably just playing the cautious, just trying to read out the situation, see where they're at, and wait for their moment to happen. And they ended up pushing up. At one point, they kind of got over on the side of the map here and ended up just pushing up the ramp there and got to their engagement. Now, Seiko did drop in kind of early, and there was a lot of mechs up here for Black Spikes, but ended up not being too big of a deal. I think that he took a little bit too much damage. I don't think he should have moved as forward as possible, but one of the things that came in advantage is they just had much more SRMs and much more of that sustained damage that I was mentioning, and that allowed them to pretty much get the edge. Otherwise, light drops, it's commonly said that they're coin flip type drop. I think that it has just changed, and it's definitely not the case, I think, in MRBC when you can't take streaks, because there's less of that RNG factor. But, for Black Spikes trying to get back on their feet here, and trying to get back in that win column, it's going to be hard. I mean, you lose that first drop, you just kind of have to put it out of your mind and convince yourself, maybe as a coin flip, convince yourself you're still in this. Well, if certain things don't want to load, they don't want to load. That's just how it's going to be. So, Viridian Bog, now we'll get into this one. Was a lot of problems that Black Spikes had. When they fought 9th STS actually played a really they pretty much just pushed right on Black Spikes. Black Spikes tried to play that more range game. They even took ER large mechs and stuff, and they sat back, and ended up being that they didn't take that position the anterior Scorpions took out into the open lower area on those big hills. They took more of the higher platforms, and that just allowed 9th STS to rush in on them, kill a few mechs, roll over them, and then keep sweeping and killing off the rest of the mechs. It ended up going. It wasn't like a totally out of range win. Black Spikes possibly could have won it. It was kind of close in the end, closer than I would have expected. I think a 9th STS slowed down their push, but I'm curious on this drop now if they're going to try to play that range or not. You saw Last drop, Proton taking a little bit range mech, playing that single range mech. And maybe they'll try to play a little more range here, but I hope that they decide to go with more of a straight brawl, because at last time that range did not work for them, and I'm hoping that they just try something different than that. And hopefully, despite all this Counter-Strike huge match going on, that this is running well now. So remember, the first 2 drops are skirmish in MRBC, and then we will get into the last 3 when we get to some of the heavier classes. Will be on Conquest. And Mr. Frost was a little bit evil in making the 3rd map be the first one on Conquest where you have no lights, and that one also tends to be on some big maps, and that's led to some really interesting fights and cap situations. But before we get there, we have to play skirmish on Viridian Bog, one of the most probably hated maps in the entire out of all of them, mostly because it has some weird visibility issues. Some people think that one side has a significant advantage. If we just look here at the map real quick, a lot of people think Team 2 has the advantage because they do have the stairs. They can go up, they can control either side. But what's happened a lot of times is, so last time in Team 1, this is kind of the area that Black Spikes ended up choosing, whereas 9th STS just rolled and pushed this way. But when Antares Scorpions played it, they played a little more of these types on this kidney bean type play next up here. And that allows a team, that makes it so it's a little bit harder to push onto, because you actually have to have a lot of jump jets to get onto these high positions. But this time we are going to have EON on Team 1 and Black Spikes on Team 2. Now, you can play a little bit of range, as we saw that one time on Terry Scorpions in the NA match. They actually pushed down, went all the way up these stairs, and they went up onto these platforms and fought from this area. So that is an option that you could just choose to fight high positions anyhow from this side. But again, I don't like the draw strat. That's kind of, it can be a draw strat, and that's one of these things that's can happen on this map too, is one team's playing more of a draw strat, or come and push at us if you dare. And in those situations, then if you're going to do that, you have to be confident you're going to win the Conquest games. Otherwise, if you lose a series, you end up, if it's 0-0, you lose those drops as well. But we are going to see how both these teams will decide to take it. Well, with the Black Knight, not totally unexpected. Even if you're going to play Brawl, the Black Knight is pretty strong to just sit back and do as much of the LPL damage as possible. But otherwise, they have a Griffin 2N, Oxide, Shadowhawk, so they definitely are not going to play this totally far-off range game. They do have a Blackjack, so they have quite a bit of beams. Whereas on EON, we are seeing one Black Knight, one Grasshopper, so they could get a little more elevation. They did go back with that Sparky, this time being used by Prox instead of Seiko, but they do have some SRMs as well with the Jenner and the Griffin and probably that Shadowhawk. But I would say I like the edge here I like the builds for Black Spikes. I think that if Black Spikes plays an aggressive game, they could win this. Now, this is a really tough situation to face. They are sitting on this platform. That is, EON is sitting on this platform, and Black Spikes has to be careful. You see that Firestarter taking a little bit of the right peak. If these guys had seen that, they might have been able to drill him and actually core it out. But Black Spikes is pushing around this left side. It's pretty much, they just got to figure out how they're going to push this. One way is to come all the way wide, sort of near where Igor is at, and just try to limit the abilities of these mechs to shoot down on you. Use any ECM that you possibly have to screen that. And they do have that Griffin 2N, and with the foliage, they might be able to push in without taking too much damage. Now you have the more brawl mechs, like the Griffin 3M, the Blackjack 1X sitting down below the platform of the lower hill, just kind of waiting, and because there's no reason for them to take any damage until the fight actually really gets going. I think at this point the black spikes, they should try to come really wide. Actually, it's pretty much over more like on that side on the map. If they're going to fight this corner, though, if you end up trying to push this corner, it is pretty much you're going to lose a mech or two before you get close. And honestly, they don't have enough of that brawl probably to just completely throw away any mechs that are pushing on the front line. A little bit of trade going on from that far, nothing really damage-wise, but they're just kind of filling each other out. This is, again, this is a type of map where you can play a very patient style, especially when one team is just setting up on a spot. Black Spikes has tons of time to figure out how they're actually going to approach this. It's not a position that you can really move well from EON. They could possibly try to get so much mechs more up on top of the mountain, of the hill. They can actually jump across the grasshopper, or the Griffin could just jump across from the tree and get up top. That might actually be a good decision to do at this time once they recognize how many mechs and Black Spikes are moved over to the other side. Black Spikes does have a couple of mechs on the stairs. They are going to have to, maybe if they could get their lights and mediums actually up there, they could actually knock those lights back and keep them from applying any pressure here. The Firestarter is taking another peek, but I guess they just don't really have the angle from there. Maybe they could have taken a little bit higher spot, or even just sit on a tree. They don't have to sit on that hill. They could sit on this hill off to the right. They could actually, a lot of times a team will put a mech up here because this gives you lots of visibility. Or as I was saying, they could actually sit in the trees, and the trees are kind of a really tricky area because it's sometimes very hard to see mechs that are sitting up there. Yeah, this is obviously just becoming a very slow, methodical, just seeing who's going to actually make the first aggressive move. Dungeon Keeper's taking a little bit of damage there in his Firestarter. Imagine it's anything that they're going to be worried about at this point. Let's go through some of the builds. Got larges and mediums from Morita. And this is a Black Spike mech, so one of the trebuchets is range. Xander playing the Oxide. Pretty standard build there. Acquired. Blackjack, mediums, medium pulse. I was kind of curious if they're going to play a little bit more of a range style there. Oh my gosh, and I totally just missed a kill. That is unfortunate. Where did that even happen at? Why was a mech getting possibly in a situation where it could die? That is unbelievable. So he was just out here scouting, and somehow they're able to just get that angle in on him and I kill him. Did he over? Because he was at 100%. That is weird. Did he disconnect? Well, we won't know. I don't know. We'll find out maybe later. Let's say killed, so I'm assuming not, but that's a very unfortunate situation there. Really curious what happened, but EON now they feel the pressure and they have pushed through C3 area towards the center crab, and they're going to try to get in this area. This is a terrible area to end up engaging though, because they're going to get caught up in here, and Funky Cat does go down, and even to push around these branches, these roots, and up these hills, these stairs, it is almost impossible to get back in here and see. Okay, so Seagull's sitting, it's not even working right. It's not even going into what I said, but Morita's just having a field day back here. He's able to apply tons of pressure, and now it is just falling quickly for EON, and Black Spikes is taking a huge lead here, 4-0, and that's pretty much nothing they're going to be able to do from this position, and it should become pretty close to an 8-1, 8-0 victory here. And Legolas suicides and leaves just one mech left alive. Black Knight totally cored out, one shot left, and he will go down, and it quickly goes in favor of Black Spikes. Well done. I really need to know what happened to that light, but I think the main problem there is I don't understand why EON just chose to push the way they did. That is one of the worst areas, I think, to actually engage in. It is horrible to maneuver around. It is just a horrible area to try to actually push through, and you can't actually assault that hill that Black Spikes was sitting on. They had their range mechs in a perfect position. They had the brawl mechs ready to rain down SRMs in that area, and you saw they even got hung up there. They didn't actually end up pushing very far into there because mechs were taking a severe amount of damage, and in the end the Firestarter also not able to do any damage for their second light mech, and Funky Cat was that first I believe mech to actually go down during that push, and he also was unable to really put any damage in there. None of their mechs except for the Black Knight and the Grasshopper, who had the range, were able to do anything at all, and maybe a lot of that damage actually probably came in, and some of it at least in that early part of the fight. I'm gonna try to get this replay. So I'm not using my normal because we're using. I'm using MRBC league site, so I'm going to try to get it working here. All right, so we're seeing the replay here, and we're still at the very early part of this engagement. Only a couple of minutes have been in there, and they are, as I was mentioning, the teams are just kind of sitting back at this point, and nothing too important is going on. Unfortunately, I end up missing the biggest thing. One of the problems when you jump into the first-person mode is that you can't actually see what's going on anymore. I would love to be able to have this battle grid up, for example, in first-person mode, but nope, no, they don't allow us to. Hopefully, that'll be in the next version. And as mentioned, Black Spikes did win this, go on to win this match, so that'll be tied up 1-all. Yeah, I know I said, with keeping Proton alive, and it might sound like, hey, that's not fair to the rest of their team, but when Proton actually outdamages pretty much anybody else on your team by 1.5 to 2 times, he is worth 2 players. Throughout EMP's run in the MSI tournament, Proton was doing approximately, I think it was over 1.5 kills than anybody else on the team, or over 1.5 damage or something like that than anybody else on the team. So it was a significant difference between him and the rest of the team. And that is, when you have a person like that is doing consistently that amount of damage and kills, you want that person to be alive. They're, if you want to take it in terms of some other games, they might not be the guy who's your entry frag, because that's the guy, he might get the kill, but he's going to trade a lot of times. He's not going to actually, maybe he won't stay alive after that first part, but if it's your hero player, if it's your all-star type player, that player has to be in the role, in the position, the type of mech that's going to allow them to try to carry a match if it goes bad, if it goes south. And if they're just a player going in, say you're running a brawl deck and they're your lead Griffin, you might not want to have your best player in that type of a role. But obviously, as I mentioned, it is up to, it's a team game. It's important for everybody to be playing well in order to win. But when you want to talk about keys, and you want to talk about some of the what's some of the main things you want to look for when you're watching, I think that is one of the areas you want to be paying attention to. I just barely caught that there. I'm still not really sure how he died, because these mechs on the other side would have no damage on there. It would just been a couple of mechs there shooting him. Maybe it was a headshot. There's no strikes, obviously, so it's kind of a weird situation. But right here, yeah, you just can't push here. You can't push around these routes very well. These stairs are terrible, especially from that side. Most of the time, if you're in that area and the other team is in that spot that Black Spikes is in, you just have zero chance to win at that point. So well played, well controlled by Black Spikes. I talking about staying calm, and I think that's one of the problems. EON lost their first mech and they felt like they had to push. There was plenty of time. There was plenty of time to try to get maybe some more trades. Perhaps they didn't feel like they had the range mechs to actually trade at range, but I think that they should have tried to pick at least a different way of assaulting. They could have gone wide, right? So they could have gone all the way around. Try to get that up. One thing they could have tried to do, and it might not bring up skirmish here. If it doesn't, just there we go. So one of the things, so they lost this light up here, right? And they ended up pushing this way. Got caught here. That's where they died. I think instead what they should probably done, because how poor that area is, and this is a really hard area to push to. They could have considered going this way, switching sides, maybe even trying to catch this trebuchet that was sitting up there. Try to play this type of an engagement from this direction. There's a little bit more room to maneuver, a little bit more cover, and I think that would have worked a bit better for them. And I mean, I can guarantee you it would have worked at least a little bit better for them, because obviously this way did not work for them at all. But I think that they just got a little bit too worried about it. They felt like, we lost a max, we got to push. Well, no, you don't. You got time. Play a little patience there. There's a lot of times the team will lose a mech on a bad type of situation, and they come back and they can win those matches. Crazy things happen in the early parts of matches. Never know. Just because you're down one mech doesn't mean the match is over. You still got to play your mechs. You still got to worry about your position. You still got to get good engagements to the rest of your teammates. So you got to keep calm in those types of situations. You can't freak out. And especially when the rest of their team wasn't taking any damage. They had no real pressure on them. They had 7+ minutes left on the clock. They could have done a lot of things. So hopefully they learn from that little mistake and apply it to the next drop, because the next drop we are going to get into Conquest. Tourmaline is going to be the next map. Now this is probably one of the most difficult maps on Conquest. There are one of the things that you might see here is ice ferrets. Ice ferrets allow you to play your mediums pretty much as light, since you don't have any other light mechs, and they can try to go out and cap. If the team decides to do that, then they probably are going to take ER large mechs. However, one of the difficulties is, while we're waiting, because I think this map you're going to see a few things, and these are the things you're going to want to look for. So Team 2 has a big advantage, a lot of people think, because they can choose if they're going to push right up to Theta, or if they're going to play range, maybe E4, the G5, and G6 type area. They could try that. Now it is a little bit still lighter tonnage. Well, it's not really. It's still got the 3 mediums, but also has a drag Victor. And how you're going to use that Victor is going to be really important. What type of mech you take? Maybe you go ER large Gauss, PPC SC5s. Maybe even a Brawl Victor. So how you're going to use your Victor might determine what type of strat you're going to go for. However, if you are on this Team 1, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult, because you don't know if they're going to push or play at range. And some people will try to push this E4 direction, and it's worked for various people. Entary Scorpions did it successfully against EON, actually. EON was holding the A point. Actually, no, sorry, they did against House of Lords. Yes, against House of Lords. And they were successful in that push. We've seen other teams win that push as well. So that is an option if Team 1 is worried about them playing range. They could just try to go for a quick push up that direction. Otherwise, if Team 1 wants to play a range strat and is kind of poking here, maybe up on stage, the Tourmalines, and they get pushed in on from Team 1. All right, this is a new app, and there's some weird bugs going on where my cursor's getting caught. So anyhow, so let's get to the action. All right, so let's look at the mechs, and we got the Grasshopper, we got Enforcer, Blackjack, 2K, and very interesting, another Black, and a Catapult being played by Black Spike, so they are going to go for the range game. And let's see what the other team. So they got the Black Knight, Timberwolf, Shadowcat. So that gives you a little bit faster medium option. But here's EON right now. They're already getting way out in the open on just a couple of mechs here, and there are 4 stacked up. And Dungeon Keeper in that Black Knight, I don't even know how he's going to possibly be able to get in range those LPLs, at least where you want to be with that mech before he goes down. I mean, that is one of your tanky mechs, and it is kind of helping with that push across. But now they've got most of their mechs grouped up, but they do have their Victor on the high point here. But now Black Spikes is well grouped up here, but now as soon as they back down here, they're going to have a really hard time. It's really, really hard to fight from where Black Spikes is going to end up. And I don't think they should have backed down here. It's not very good for them. But now EON has to push this. They cannot corner poke here. And that's what they're going to do. Dungeon Keepers rotate the back, and they have taken down Initializer in that Black Knight. And they are continuing to push. They have a lot of their mechs in position here. They're going to have to get that Shadowcat and maybe that Victor in this fight, because there's really no, I mean, they just got to keep this momentum going there. Now, Black Spikes does take down Dungeon Keeper, who was that tank pushing over, but EON has already taken down both the Victor and the Enforcer. And now, you know, Proton's in a terrible little area there for him. I mean, there's nothing he can do here, but he does take down Prox. Oh, this is kind of going really kind of weird, but there's tons of fresh mechs for EON. They just got to keep applying the pressure. Don't give up. Don't give up any position. And there's the mechs. They are now falling just as expected. And they just keep moving here. They got to get that Shadowcat. They got to get that Victor involved here. EON does, just to trade some of that damage. They might be trying to keep it alive for bonus points, because points are going to be very important in the end standings. But they still got to make sure they win and don't give up any other kills if they can possibly help it. This did not turn into a capping game at all. And now, so they got this catapult up in the corner, but he can maybe do a little bit more damage, and they're just kind of maybe underneath there. And they did take down the Shadowhawk, who's off to the right side. And at this point, the catapult has to get in here. Maybe the Blackjack, identify who's most hurt. Looks like Seiko in that Timberwolf, trying to get at least one more kill. Maybe switch to that Grasshopper. Do anything they possibly can just to get a few more points out of this, because the drop is definitely not going to be a victory. And Morita is now just going to get absolutely destroyed, being in the middle of all these mechs there. And EON now has to go and cap a point. Yeah, cap or decap a point. But EON has replied very harshly. Spikes dropped 2 victory, and EON has taken this one very convincingly and dropped 3, and they keep the bonus points because they killed the Victor and kept theirs alive. And they also got the heavies down, obviously, and that did not happen. And Black Spikes did not get down the other heavies and assault. So all the bonus points are going to EON. And again, the bonus points really do. This league, this division, this is so close. It is coming. It's going to come down to a lot of these bonus matches. So draws are not what you want. You need those bonus points in these later drops. Well, draws aren't going to happen in Conquest anyhow, but you need the bonus, and that means you want to make sure you're actually killing mechs and not just cap winning. Because if you just cap win and you don't get down all the heavies, you're not going to get those bonus points, and that could actually really hurt you at the end of the season. There aren't that many matches this season in the division, because it's only single round robin. Seiko doing a lot of damage there in the Timberwolf, 602 damage. Dungeon Keeper was at 1 pushing forward, only able to do 93. So I think that really what happened here for Black Spikes is they ended up pushing too many mechs up to E4. They did the same thing that House of Lords did, and the reason the House of Lords lost is they had too many mechs to get away or kite or do any situation, and the position went hugely in favor of EON. So we're waiting for this to actually load because it was such a quick fight. Scoreboard until the match actually starts. Say that. Here we go. We're gonna have now we have the replay up from this Tourmaline fight. I do feel like this is a mistake here from EON. They did not need to push out those mechs right away. They weren't ready for this fight. It wasn't what they were planning on doing. If anything, it might have kept these mechs a little bit hesitant. I think that just watching these 4, how they're able to actually get focus fire. If they could have gotten a mech down right away. They end up doing the stack on this line, which means they're kind of in each other's way a fair bit. But there was enough range coming in that they didn't feel comfortable pushing mechs onto this left. And that's one way to face this push, is to have mechs left. this point, they had called pretty much all their mechs over here. They got 6 of their 8 mechs on this line, and at this point now they're in that hump that's a little bit lower of a position. You can no longer shoot there, so they decide to choose that position at that point of the match to drop back. Now they're getting hit from the Shadow Cat over here. He actually is a really nice position on the fight, and there's the Victor up on stage area. I'm guessing he was ER Large Gauss, but right there, I mean, the focus fire is much easier, much easier for EON. And the drop does cascade a bit. I think these mechs here didn't need to stay up here because you see that mech fighting down there. They should have been much more into the fight, helping them out. Just a little minor mistake there, but they were such in control of the match at this point, it did not really matter. And then, so these mechs 3, they're in a pretty good, to do that, and that's kind of where you want to be if a team's going to be pushing E4 and not have those mechs over there. I think that they should have backed off pretty early once they saw them pushing. I think they should have tried to get back to this line and not even have contested the E4 based on the types of mechs they had. But they were winning the first part of that trade. As you saw, Dungeon Keeper was not able to do very much in the Black Knight because he was that lead tank. Switch back over to focus on drop number 4. We do have a 2-to-1 advantage for EON energy. Frozen City Knight tends to play very brawly. Now this is going to be a 2-all drop. It is the only one where we're going to see even chassis across the board. I'm curious here if we're going to see a range or if we'll see the brawl. Both ways are very playable. You could play like an LPL medium laser style, kind of the in-between, maybe mixed in with an Atlas and a Mauler if you want to be able to absorb some of that. You could decide, though, you're going to play with SRM mediums, maybe even Brawl Heavies. A lot of teams don't take the Brawl Heavies, end up going with the Grasshopper Black Knight just so they can have a little bit of flexibility there. But are they going to double up on the Atlas? Are they going to double up on a medium, double up on the Oxides if you're going to be really aggressive and maybe just give up all the conquest ideas? You might just double up on the Oxides because the Oxides, I mean, that's if you want to put your money in a mech, the most unequaled mech, then you're probably just going to go with the Oxide. But if you want to add a little more scouting ability, some of the jump jets, then you probably would take an Oxide and a General 2C. So one of the problems with the Oxide is that since it doesn't have jump jets, it doesn't act as a very good scout. And if you double up on Oxide, sometimes you end up not having a very good positional understanding of your opponent, and you end up pushing in a way that is not opportune. Instead, I recommend maybe even a Cheetah in that kind of a situation if you just want a little bit of ECM for that scout, make it a little bit harder for the team to pick that out, as well as provide a little bit of ECM coverage during the push if you want to go that way, or even applying some ECM to the enemy when you're by getting your lights behind them. Based on the way EON Synergy is playing, I am expecting them to try to play a little more of a push. EON again, it'll be team 1 on Frozen City. And Conquest, actually in the past we talked about Theta was not really a big deal in Conquest, but it's changed a fair bit. Teams are now playing Theta a little more tightly. They're actually trying to control it sometimes with their lights and force the other team to push into them, especially if they take a brawl deck and they're facing anything that's not a pure brawl deck that could go in there. Yeah, they don't want to have to push against it. So if you can control Theta, it can be very helpful. Team 2, a lot of people think Team 2 has the advantage on Theta, but I don't necessarily agree with that, because what Team 1 can do is they can control like a point like this, or even put a mech here and help control Theta, or even push down this way if they want to. And at this point they could use Streak Crows or something like that to also provide some help against lights. We haven't really seen the streaks in these drops from the drop 2 or 3, but I wouldn't expect it on 3 at all, maybe 2. But here's an opportunity where you might want to take a Streak Crow just to help with the lights during a brawl, and just try to, because I mean if they're using Oxides, even double Oxides, but you have a Streak Crow and you can take those out, you are changing the fight with 700 damage worth if you can get them down early enough. EON Team 1 though, I mean, they could try to play a range control game. So if they can get a couple mechs, it's weird. Don't know what's going on there. Once again, let's get in on the action. This is going to be drop number 4 between EON Black Spikes. EON is ahead 2-1 in this match. They can win this drop, they'll win the series at least, but all points matter. So we see Banshee 3Ms, and that's good. That's probably means you got some LPLs, and that means, yeah, let's see, you got the Enforcer 4R, Grasshopper are going to play an LPL medium type of a control strat, whereas in the other team we see a mix of Griffins and with the Mauler, Oxide, Gen 2C, Atlas, and a Mauler. So we are going to actually, this is going to be a battle of different styles. We're going to see one try to play a control game, that would be EON, as Black Spikes is going to have to push at some point, especially if they cannot control Theta. And I think that was a really good idea for the strat, that they went after Theta right away. Try to control it and then ask Black Spikes if they want to come back, because this way your lights are only just momentarily gone after Theta. You're not sending them away mid match and then possibly running into issues. One of the issues that can happen is your lights are away when the other team pushes. So now they've already had it. It's kind of like this little indicator there that if with Black, that might be the time you'd push. But with the weapons they have, I do not expect them to be pushing here at all. They do not want to push against an Atlas. They need to try to identify it. But the lights so far, they probably have not actually identified anything, because they're just coming out of the Theta area now, and they're going to have to look around. They're going to see that Grasshopper up there, but that might make them feel like that Black Spikes is playing a range game. But as we know, they got Griffins, an Oxide, and an Atlas that they're going to have to try to get into this fight at a certain point. So one of the things you're going to want to watch for is, does EON stay calm and stay back, control, or do they try to get too aggressive? If they get aggressive towards that ridge, they start pushing up there, trying to get more aggressive pokes in there, that's going to be the perfect opportunity for Black Spikes to push back against them. Far, a little bit of damage actually against those Griffins. That's probably not what you want to do. So they have seen at least there is that Griffin. They know there are some SRMs on the other side, and they know that they just sit back. And then now Katapuk is taking a bit of damage down to 85%, and he's going to lose the opportunity to try to control the match from range pretty quick. So he's going to end up having to sit back, and it's going to come all down to how Black Spikes is going to respond. They do not have Theta. You see these two mechs, these lights here, are ready for that. They're ready for Black Spikes to choose to go after Theta if they want to, but Black Spikes is saying no. They're going to push around the lower buildings, and they are going to probably, are they going to get a push here because they have the Atlas Proton in the, it would be really good if EON could actually rotate up to this hump now. This is a pretty good spot, and they're chasing the lights around, Maybe they're going to try to control Theta from this spot, but that Jenner 2C takes tons of damage down there to 62%. They'll limit any opportunity they can to actually cap at this point. They're going to be forced into engaging in the brawl. They're going to have to push against this line. And I think at this point, though, they're really balled up. Now, strikes are something that can be used. This is the 4th drop, and they're really balled up. And I think that this is going to allow the other team, this is going to allow Black Spikes to swarm them from both sides, and that's what they're going to try to do here. and they're starting to spread out, a little bit, try to hold the line, but they're gonna have to choose how they're gonna engage this area as Proton is coming in. Tons of damage down against Black Spikes. EON has done their job with the range, and now it is just a case of focus firing and not allowing any of their big brawl mechs to do too much to you. Try to keep your Banshees alive, try to keep your Black Knights alive, and just finish off these mechs that you've already done severe pain to. And the Grasshopper goes down, the Griffin 2 will go down, Jetter 2C goes down, but in turn they've lost their Banshees and their Black Knight. So now it is getting really close here as it dropped. We've got a lot of sprawl against range, and they're really spread out now, and it's been a much more hard time here actually getting focus fire down. Proton taking on procs. Trades are coming in, and it is a 3-4 in favor of Black Spikes. And because of the brawl, you have to, and it's pretty fresh Atlas, you have to believe this is going to go in favor of Black Spikes. And yeah, quickly it does, as the Atlas is just absolutely able to do tons of damage at this range. And there's nothing that those lasers can really do against them. The caps aren't really a problem at this point because there just isn't time for Light to try to win on caps. And it's just this Jenner 2C that is left at the end. The Oxide will have no problem keeping him harassed, and you will not be able to, in any kind of way, try to pick up an extra cap. There just isn't enough time to win here, so this drop 4 is going to go in favor of Black Spikes, which is going to even up this match series. We are getting a very, very close match between these two teams. Two of the best teams in EU scene. And now it's just a matter of finishing off a couple caps. I really thought that EON actually was going to have enough damage there. I mean, there was tons of damage done on that approach. The problem probably came is their spread out was a bit too late. It was once Black Spikes had already pushed in too close, and that limited EON's ability to actually focus on any mechs towards that ended part of that push. And therefore, a lot of mechs stayed up alive much longer than they should have. Alright, so looking at the damage, Proton, 650 damage from that, and the Oxide Slim Shady doing an excellent job staying alive in that Oxide, doing 535 damage. The Peach, like I said, he got picked out pretty early. And it's good that they got him down, but the Grasshopper did an excellent job for Legolas, 621 damage. Otherwise, pretty even damage is TT1A was not able to do a lot with the Blackjack there. Neither was the Enforcer. Kind of a missed opportunity with those mechs, perhaps, because if they had gone with some SRMs and been able to head off that push a little bit and kept their range mechs sitting farther back, it would have been a little bit easier. But instead, they had all their range mechs all pretty close to each other. They did not drop their Banshees back farther away, and they ended up just having easy targets for Black Spikes to choose which one they were going to focus on. And they just got their choice of targets at that point. Alright, so we're watching the replay now. And I think, so one of the things that, the way they could have received this push was either be spread out a little bit more ahead of time. If they could have sat on this hill is pretty powerful to sit on. It allows you to control that lower part that Black Spikes ends up going to, and they would then be able to do more damage on that. It would usually at 4, it causes the team to react by just pushing straight up here, which actually does not work too well. Sometimes it can. Just depends how much damage you've actually taken. The other thing is, you'll see that they have this line here, which is fine for now in the trade. As this push is coming, they start spreading out a little bit more. If they would have done that before the push got to like here, like before Black Spikes got here, that's fine. But because Black Spikes had already penetrated so deep into their lines, that spread out, they weren't able to focus. And we'll see that coming up in a few seconds here. A couple minutes, really. Black Spikes definitely did their job in recognizing when they were no longer able to control the cap situation, when making it so it wouldn't get too close towards the end in case they even lost a push with their bigs, and then or even if it came a really close fight and they had to recap some points, pushing this early part is definitely better. Give yourself plenty of time to deal with the caps at the end if you're going to be down 3-2. don't push when it's already like 600 points and you're trying to just scrap a victory away. All right, so here comes the push. It's a very nice push, very well orchestrated, very well timed. Both sides hitting about the same point, light getting in, mediums getting in just slightly ahead, which actually disrupts this line. And right here, you know, they're spreading out, which is kind of okay. They got some X here. Where's going to be the focus fire here? How are they going to focus fire when they're just getting nailed with SRMs? And now at this point, right here, hard Atlas there. So it's really hard for them to focus fire at that point. They've already taken so much damage from those mediums. They weren't able to kick. They had to get down the mediums and the lights early during that push if they wanted to win that fight. But they weren't able to do that. And then by the time the Atlas got in, they didn't have enough mechs alive. They weren't really able to just focus on it. You saw one of the other blackjacks, I think, rushed forward into the Atlas and got taken down. And at that venture, there's just nothing left for them to be able to do. And it was just cleanup time for Black Spikes. Nice shot there on the light, ripping him down. But, you know, this Atlas has plenty of armor left. Black Spike's able to even it up. Both teams playing very hard. Both, no, you know, there's no fear here. Both teams playing to win, they're not worrying about their losses. That's what's nice. You know, they first drop went in favor of EON. Second drop, Black Spikes won. Third drop, then EON. Fourth drop, Black Spikes. So now we're gonna get into the huge 4 assaults. 4 heavies, 2 lights, Caustic Valley, Conquest. We've seen some really interesting matches in that first match against 9th STS and Black Spikes. 9th STS. And right then, 9th STS forced into Black, occupied all their mechs except for the 2 9 and kept 4th. And it was so we haven't seen it. It was excellent, but Black Spikes, they got to have a little bit of nightmares about that fight. They got to be feeling like that was one that definitely got away from them. So here, I really looking for Black Spikes to choose to play a much more controlled cap game. And if they're not going to feel very comfortable on the caps, I expect them to bring the fight instead of waiting until the late trying to receive it. They felt like they were winning that fight. They felt like they were winning the cap situation, but they just weren't in that one. But here, that and not wanting to leave it up to such a situation where they could possibly lose with the final, cap going on in the final moments. So, this match, 2-2, going into the finals, it's going to be a 3-2 match. It's not. My dog is being crazy here. She wants love. It's points wise, EON really kind of wanted to win a 4-1 here, especially after losing to Lords. They needed to get back into getting a dominant win here. So, but if they can win 3-2, it's still good. But it's not going to be enough points. Maybe it's going to make their point situation really, really crazy going into their final week match. As for Black Spikes, a 3-2 win here. It's a solid win against a solid team. Wins matter. Points wise, though, yeah, they lost 4-1 their opening match, but that's okay. That's okay because a lot of teams have lost. Several teams have lost 4-1, so they can definitely overcome that point deficit. And any win against a team is going to help them, but that doesn't mean that they're going to have to get a big win to overcome that 4-1 loss against their final opponents, which will be both fighting Antares Scorpions and House of Lords. Look at the standings here. It is a little bit difficult because to understand because we have BMMU who withdrew. Therefore, some teams haven't gotten those forfeit wins against them, and that includes House of Lords and Black Spikes. Once those points get, or no, sorry, Black Spikes does have it. My mistake. Black Spikes does have it. House of Lords doesn't. So House of Lords is kind of at 11-4. Same with 9th. Single and Tigers once you include that forfeit win. So you'll have to consider that. But C-Bills wise, it's just a hard read right now. It's too close among all these teams. Every team I think could still win this thing. And that is awesome. But going into the fifth weeks with any of these teams could possibly win. That's what we want. I mean, that's what a Division A should be. Especially if you just enjoy watching these matches. All right, so Caustic Valley, I think we're going to probably see, I mean, we're seeing most teams taking ACs. It's basically just because of the heat situation. It allows you to stay cool, put out a lot of damage through the fight. We are seeing control maybe the space. If you take some Gauss or ER large, it help you control. You can apply damages to lights as they're trying to rotate towards caps. Engage each other around a cap, and if you're with your assaults or heavies, and that if that enables your light mechs to win, that means you are then going to be able to control the skirmish side of the fight. As for the heavies, now there's a lot of options there. Gauss is an option. ACs are an option. We've seen ER large. We've seen LPL Gauss. We've seen things all over the board for that. Jaegers can happen with triple Ultra AC5s. So what often is happening, we're seeing matches, is one team's playing a sit back strat on this map, whereas the other team is playing a much more aggressive strat to take Theta. It's generally been the team that takes Theta has ended up winning the match. So let's find out. This is going to be drop number 5 between Black Spikes and EON, all tied up 2-2. Lots of points left on the line in this final drop, as there are the bonuses for killing the big mechs. Plus, you got the kill points and the win bonus points, and if you can keep mechs alive, don't give the other team too many kills, there's plenty of opportunity to make a big point differential on this drop for either team and cut into build up your lead, or try to gain a lead in the overall division standings. So Black Spikes, Banshee, Battlemasters, they are going with a bit of the range. Well, so they won't have, it'll be pretty good there for a counter light, but the other team went to the Spider 5K, which we've mentioned that mech before. It's very popular. For some, it's become a very popular light. And then we got the 2 Maulers, but we got the 1P and the 1R, so it's not the give me a 5 or 6 AC5, and we do have a little bit of fighting here over the Theta. And Generosity actually takes quite a bit of damage there in the cheetah, down 65%. That's going to be a huge impact on the rest of this match for Black Spikes. They have pretty much already lost the cap situation, because now that they have one light who just can't move around anymore. And it's really unfortunate there that quickly by going into Theta and having the great position. And really now EON is like forget this, man. We're not going to wait around. We're taking Theta. We're taking the Caldera away from you. They're going to apply a lot of pressure here, and there's got with that Banshee. I mean, there's no, they probably recognize that there's a heat situation here, but they have their own Battlemaster and Banshee. It's not like they have like a much heat, you know, a heat advantage here, but they are not wasting any time, and they are just absolutely applying severe amount of damage to that Grasshopper, pushing over the Caldera. They got the angle. They take down Catapult. They're going to take down Skate Knock. They are rolling now. Even though Black Spikes is up here on the D5 situation and on this tail, they got overlooked, but they are not going to be able to really do much about this here. They are going to have their choice of dinner tonight, and they are going to be pushing on Elysium now. They're choosing the Battlemaster. High heat mech won't be able to do much. He's going to go down, and the initializer will fall down really quickly, and this is really, really going in favor of EON. They do finally, Black Spikes finally gets down one mech, but they're already 4 mechs down for Black Spikes, and they're just losing out. They just don't have enough firepower left, and all the mechs are just dying here, and you got a Cheetah and a Jenner left alive for Black Spikes. They're to get a kill. Honestly, at this point, caps don't matter. Only 104 points on the board, easily retakeable by EON. At this point, EON, I mean, they just want to stay alive. All right, this points matter. Points matter at the end, so just stay alive as much as possible. Don't let any of your mechs go off and chase on their own. Control it. You can play it a little bit slower here. You know that you drilled that Cheetah at the beginning of the fight, so at this point, you know they're really down to pretty much 1 light plus a little bit more, and they're going to try to chase these lights around. So you do have your 2 lights left. You have your Spider K, who should just be harassing these mechs, keeping track of them, know where they're going, and then close in on them with your heavies and your assaults. But do not let those lights try to get any kills, because you just don't want to give up any points. You don't want to give Black Spikes any points if you don't have to. But the match, I mean, the match has generally been won. It's 170 to 18 here, 2 cap lead, but there's no reason that at any point EON can't just quickly grab a 4 cap if they want to. Grasshopper adding some damage here, hitting that Jenner 2C just a little bit. If they can just get that Cheetah down, the Jenner 2C is pretty much going to feel it's futile and probably just try to get some kind of an engagement here, maybe on the Grasshopper, see what it can do. Now they're about to go into this open range here, and that's when the Banshee and the Grasshopper should be able to finish off both mechs. And they also have another mech that's going to be coming from Sigma. It's going to meet up with them. And it should be over in the next 30 seconds to a minute. Well played. Well played. I mean, I did not expect that. I thought with them taking on that light, you know, so down on damage, that they were going to slow down this fight. Now, as Battlemaster, as I was talking about, you don't want to give up a kill here, and he ends up playing a little bit too aggressive from Sigma and gets caught by these 2 lights, and they're on the upside of this hill from the other mechs, so they are not getting too much damage against them. The Grasshopper's finally over on the right, applying a little bit of damage here, but they just got to, yeah, okay, so they finally get him down, and they do get at least 2 kills in this match. So that'll be, it's like 20,000 Z-bills or something like that. I forget how many points it is. But now the Spider comes in, machine guns, and just finishes it off. Little strike coming down here, nothing too damaged that's going to matter, and they finish off with Xander Peach to take this one 8-2. Well played by both teams. Unfortunately for Black Spikes, they're not able to get into the winning column. They did improve. I mean, the first match they only were able to win 1 drop. This one they won 2, and they fought very closely. In several of those drops, they played really well, but it did go in EON's favor. EON was able to come back from their loss against House of Lords. I mean, they struggled against House of Lords. There was a lot of mistakes just being made there. You know, they're trying to, I think there was just a lot of positional errors. They all admitted it. It's not, I don't think, a player skill issue or anything like that. I mean, they all have very highly skilled players who have had tons of success in the in the past EU leagues. And yeah, I mean, they played really well tonight. I mean, obviously they admitted it. They admitted that Frozen City there was made some positional mistakes. That they didn't really practice it, so they lost that drop. But they have stuff to build on. But you know, it's always nice when you're building on victories. People are telling me my mic's cutting it out. It seems like it doesn't do it, and then it does. I don't know what's going on with that. I just gonna have to try more stuff to see. Maybe I'm having a keyboard problem. Hopefully not. Right here was just the aggression. Like this is brave. This is really brave to do this push, because you're playing a really, really good team, and you're just running through the caldera here. I mean, they had to have seen something. They must have seen those assaults there, and the assault sitting back D5, and they felt like they could take down this Banshee and Grasshopper quick and get a huge advantage, because they would not be able to be supported on this left side very much at all. And you see, even there, those range mechs sitting back there aren't able to get very good angles on this at all. And the percentages are, there's barely any damage done to EON after these first 2 kills. It's just such in their favor on this. And then they don't let go, though. They have to keep applying this pressure, but their movement, their angles that they moved here, they made a really nice move. They finished off those 2 mechs, and they did not drop to the left side. They did not spend time coming back around to the right. And that allowed them really to quickly transition to having all their mechs online to destroy the rest of the Black Spikes mechs that are hanging out around the D5 side. Very, very well played. And unfortunately, you know, they also had this Jenner and Cheetah away from the fight. And we thought, I mean, they ended up getting that 1 kill, but I wonder if they could have possibly at least stuck in the backs, if this rotated through the backs and picked off some of these assaults who are sitting farther back, and not allowed them just to sit there, you know, shooting the rest of their teammates. I think at this point it's way too early in the match to even be caring about caps, like to actually try to win it based on caps, especially when you're down. When you're losing fights like that, I think that they should have kept those lights involved in the fight and done as much as they possibly can to slow down that push, or to punish that push from the behind. Well, leave this expand. But congratulations are in order for EON, showing that they deserved to be in that division. They are a new team. I mean, yes, BMMU did play last season EU, and they did really well, but this isn't really just BMMU. This is Seiko from BMMU, and then mixing up with the some of the top VRGD players. So it is a new team, but they came in and they just started scrimming. And they proved themselves, and it was easily recognizable to the league admins that they deserved a spot in the Division A. And now they're really proving they deserve there either. Now Black Spikes, you know, won 4 out of the last 5 seasons, struggling this season. Hopefully, you know, for them though, that they can recover from this and win their last 2 matches. Because they got to get some wins on there. They got to get points, because they do not want to get relegated. And it would really be a shame, I think, if we didn't have Black Spikes. I mean, this champion team to be in the Division A in the next season. But that is possible for them. You have to wonder, how much is it costing them for that there's a House of Lords EU team, and that they don't have some of that other players that they have used in the past, such as Coburn and Rithen. They're not playing with them at all this season. So with that, I mean, we go back to the standings. And we see, I mean, EON Synergy will improve to the 13 wins, drops 1, 7 drops lost. So they should end up, I mean, they got all the bonuses, so they should definitely end up ahead of Anteri Scorpions. So they'll be moving into first place. Now, Sangwon Tigers was playing House of Lords right now, so it is possible if Sangwon Tigers gets like a 4-1 victory over House of Lords that they could move into the first as well, or instead. We'll have to see. I might check with them just see exactly where they're at. It'll allow me to stream the last little bit. I'm trying to see. It looks like they're in drop right now. It looks like they're done. I'm confused. I'm on their TS just trying to check. But it looks like they have finished. I don't know what the results were. Let's see if there's any results entered. Sometimes teams at least put in their number of drops one. They start an hour later, so I wouldn't expect that they'd still be playing. I would expect that they still would be playing. Since there's nothing else to stream, as far as I can tell, we'll just end it right here. One last time, congratulations EON Synergy winning this Week 4 matchup in the MRBC Division A EU 3-2 over Black Spikes, taking the first, third, and fifth drops. Black Spikes winning the second and fourth drops. Well played by both teams. Thanks for allowing me to cast the match. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.